Hey, this is Eddie with Precision Gun Reviews. We're here taking a look at the Kimber Solo Carry. This is Mike's new weapon. It is a small 9mm of a single stack design, designed for concealed carry, everyday carry. It's 5.5 inches long, it's 3.9 inches tall, and only 0.995 inches thick. So it's less than an inch thick unless you count these low profile ambidextrous safety levers, which brings it up to about 1.2 inches thick right here only. It's 17 ounces unloaded, and when you talk about the magazine, we're looking at 6 rounds plus 1 in the chamber. Now if you take a look at this gun, you can see that all of the edges all around have been smoothed out, rounded, and optimized for a snag-free design for concealed carry. And looking at the gun, it is an absolute beauty. When I first looked at it, there was nothing about it that I didn't like from a visual standpoint. One of the best looking small handguns that I think is available right now. When you look at the grip, you can get about 2 fingers on there, wrap your pinky underneath. There's some checkering on this synthetic insert that gives you a little bit of purchase with your fingers, but otherwise feels smooth. And being that the frame is made entirely out of aluminum, it gives you that solid feel as if you were holding a larger gun, even though it is obviously smaller than my hand. The slide is made of stainless steel, and the sights are dovetailed into the slide, and they are an excellent 3-dot setup for fast target acquisition, and they can easily be changed out because they are indeed both dovetailed, both front and rear. As for the other controls around the gun, I already mentioned this low profile safety, which is ambidextrous, and it actuates very positively and very easily, and drawing the gun, it's very simple to swipe off when acquiring a target. The magazine release, as I said before, is rounded. It requires a little bit of pressure, more so than I've seen on other weapons of this type, but it functions. The magazines drop freely and they're ejected fairly forcefully, so they're not going to get hung up. And again, that's also ambidextrous. And the trigger on this gun is absolutely smooth. You just pull back a little bit here and the gun goes off. And as for a reset, comes back to right there, and again ready to go. Kimber says that the trigger pull, the weight of the trigger on this gun is about 7 pounds, and I'm inclined to believe them, although it does feel like it's less because of its smoothness all the way through the trigger pull. And it does feel absolutely great. Now I'm going to pass it over to Mike to show you how the gun is broken down and to talk about some of the reliability and some of the internals on the weapon.
So now we're going to take down this gun. The beginning of the takedown is very similar to a 1911. We're going to pull out the slide release lever here by pushing this pin right here. So we're going to line up this little missing link in the slide here with the tip of the slide release, and if we hold it right there and get started pushing it out, pops right out. Let it come forward, and then to release the slide you do need to pull the trigger, and the slide pops right off. The rest of the takedown is very similar to all the other striker fired guns, the Glocks and the Springfields. The recoil spring and guide rod comes right off. This is a dual recoil spring and steel guide rod. Now Kimber recommends for this particular gun that you replace this spring and guide rod every 1,000 rounds, which in itself is a bit of a pain. Throw in the fact that this little piece here costs $34.95 in Kimber's custom shop, and even worse, I've checked the shop about 10 times and only once has this piece actually been in stock. So that's a little annoying. Barrel you just turn to the side and it slides right out. Stainless steel barrel, unlike most of Kimber's 1911s, which are just match grade. So now to reassemble, barrel slides right back in the way we took it out. Oh, before I put the barrel back in, it is a 2.7-inch barrel. Stainless steel, as I mentioned. Barrel slides right back in. Spring goes in with a little bit of pressure. Slides right back in front of the barrel. One thing that I've noticed is you do have to straighten it out yourself. And there you go. And then it slides right back on the frame. And now here's the tricky part. Putting this back in, first you put it in here, and then as you bring the slide back, in order to put this in properly, you'll see there's a little groove there, right there. There's a tiny spring inside there sitting down on the base of the frame. You need to catch that spring in between that groove. And in order to do so, you essentially have to scratch the slide release pin up against the frame, leaving a mark in the finish. So put that right there, and then you just start to move the slide back. Pin goes in, and if you start low, you put force forward and catch that spring, and it goes right in. And that's how you reassemble a gun. Now this is the only magazine that came with the weapon. It is a 6-round stainless steel Kimber 9mm magazine. I purchased an additional magazine for $21.95 from the Kimber Custom Shop. And I also purchased 2 of these extended 8-round magazines. A couple issues with these extended magazines. They came with this white, it's almost as if the label was ripped off and they couldn't get the rest off, and it came looking just like that, which for $23.95 again is a little annoying. And they are very, very difficult to put 8 rounds in here. The first 7 go in no problem. The 8th is extremely difficult, and I've actually had some feeding problems with this particular magazine. The 8th round is so tough to get in, it doesn't want to come out. It just won't feed into the gun, and even taking it out by hand is very, very difficult. So as far as the accuracy of shooting this weapon, I'm not the world's greatest shooter. I would say I'm slightly above average, but I took it out the other day, and the first 6 shots, I actually recently graduated law school and I wanted to shoot through my bar review books, and those are the first 6 shots I've taken from 24 feet or 8 yards. You can see that 5 of the 6 shots were within a 1-inch grouping, and there was 1 flyer there off to the right. So considering I'm not the greatest shot, I would say this gun is pretty accurate, and from other people I've spoken to that have shot it, they all agree that it's a very accurate gun, which is very typical of Kimber firearms. Reliability. This is where we have some issues. So I purchased this gun, and one thing Kimber makes very clear on their website, in the manual that comes with the gun, and pretty much all over everything that came with the gun, is that this is meant as a personal defense carry weapon and is only reliable with 124 to 147 grain hollow point ammo. Premium hollow point ammo. So that's what I bought and spent a lot of money on it. They recommend 3 types. I purchased all 3. And the first day out, the first 6 shots with the gun, I had 6 failure to ejects. I loaded another magazine and I had 5, and in the next magazine I had 4. So I was not a happy camper, although Kimber does say that it takes 24 rounds of this hollow point ammo to break the gun in. So after 24 rounds, the next magazine had no failures. So I was excited. I said, okay, I guess the break-in period was necessary. Then I tried a few more rounds and I started to have the failures again. So I got fed up, put the gun away. I called Kimber. They apologized. They were very nice on the phone, and they asked me to send the gun back. So they sent me a shipping label, prepaid shipping, UPS. And I called them again, and they told me that they did find the malfunctions, and they know there is a problem and they will fix it, and it should take about 3 weeks. So 3 weeks later, I got an email from them saying the gun was ready, it was mailed out, and I'll have it the next day. The gun came back. Kimber sent me a list of what they did. They replaced the extractor They gave it a full detail, complimentary, and actually one of my safeties had a little chip in it. That was my fault, but Kimber replaced that at no charge. So I took the gun out upon getting it back, and I shot approximately 50 rounds of hollow point ammo and another 50 rounds of just 147 grain full metal jacket with no failures, no issues at all. So needless to say, I was very excited about that. I took it out again a day later after disassembling it, cleaning it, lubing it up, and reassembling it, and I had one failure to eject, and I had the issue I mentioned earlier with this extended magazine. So I called Kimber again today, just before making this video actually. I told them about the issues, and basically they said that I have two options. I could send it back to them, the same way as before. They would send me a prepaid shipping label, UPS, or I could just keep shooting the gun and hope the issues work themselves out. The gun is covered under warranty for a year, so if that doesn't work, I can always send it in. And they told me that being that I'm sending it in a second time, they would give me other options. I'm assuming they mean replacement or even a refund. As far as how much I paid for the gun, Kimber lists the gun. It has an MSRP of $747. That's about the total I paid for it with tax. So it's a pricey gun, but when you look at it, when you hold it, when you read about it, it's worth the money until you actually shoot it. It's sort of one of those too good to be true situations for me. It's everything I want in a concealed carry gun, and I want it to work so badly, and I'm almost stubborn, and I don't want to give up on it, but at this point, you know, it'd be silly to say that it's been reliable because it really hasn't. So I'm going to keep shooting it. I may have to send it back to Kimber, and we'll see what happens. So that's my final recommendation, and now I'm going to turn it over to Eddie to give you his final thoughts and any recommendation he may have.
So like Mike said with his recommendation on the gun, it's really a two-tiered situation here. The gun itself seems to be very well built. Everything about it feels good. You know, it's a gun you look at and you just kind of love. The problem comes down to it being a tool for self-defense. If it's not going to be reliable, in my opinion, I'm going to be afraid to carry it. Because when it comes down to it, I want to protect my life. Otherwise, if we can get this gun functioning at 100% reliability, then I could wholeheartedly recommend it. But when there are other options at this same size and in this class that perform more reliably, in a self-defense weapon, I'm going to have to go with something else.